This week on Siskel and Ebert, Holly Hunter and Danny DeVito find themselves suddenly single and living out loud.
Skinhead Edward Norton and Edward Furlong incite violence in American History X.
And mercenary James Woods is on the prowl in John Carpenter's Vampires.
You better be careful going down to a place like that, dressed the way you are. Then you look terrific.
Okay, really?
Danny DeVito is an elevator operator, and Holly Hunter is the lonely woman he falls in love with in Living Out Loud, one of 5 new movies we'll be reviewing this week on Siskel and Ebert. I'm Gene Siskel of the Chicago Tribune.
And I'm Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times. Our first movie is Living Out Loud, and this is one of those films that enchants us by taking the ordinary lives of lonely but colorful people and investing them with a little humor and magic. Holly Hunter plays a woman who was just split from her husband, a wealthy surgeon. Danny DeVito plays a compulsive gambler down on his luck, whose wife is throwing him out and whose daughter has just died. In ordinary times, they wouldn't have much in common, but misfortune makes for strange friendships.
Where you going?
Liz invited me to this after-hours place downtown called Confession. Oh, it's somewhere in the meat district.
Oh, you look amazing.
The Hunter character drinks and smokes too much and looks for happiness in a slinky nightclub presided over by a torch singer wonderfully well played by Queen Latifah.
I was married. My husband cheated on me left and right. It made me feel like I was crazy all the time. One day he tells me it's my fault he saw other women. So I picked up a knife and told him it was his fault I was stabbing him.
DeVito, as the elevator operator, of course, observes all her comings and goings and nurses the hope that she'll consider him for romance. Their friendship deepens as one evening he reminisces about his daughter.
This is very nice. Thank you.
Oh, please. I didn't feel like going to sleep anyway.
I haven't been sleeping much myself.
That's understandable.
She was a good kid.
Danny DeVito and Holly Hunter are 2 actors who hum with energy and charisma. If they're on the screen, you watch them. The Queen Latifah character comes in from left field, and I'm delighted that she did because her arrival in the middle of their story keeps it from ever growing conventional. Living Out Loud was written and directed by Richard LaGravenese, who wrote the screenplays for The Horse Whisperer, The Bridges of Madison County, and Beloved. Here he shows a writer's love for original characters and beautifully heard dialogue.
Well, I'm glad you pointed out the relationship between Queen Latifah coming in from left field. Because also, if you really think about it, the co-op resident and her doorman is also left field. This is special because it throws us off, and why not? This happens.
Yeah, people meet somebody, and because they're desperate and because they're lonely and because they're out there, they go back because that person was friendly.
And again, I think DeVito is simply and consistently one of the most original talents we have in movies, whether he's behind the camera or in front of it.
DeVito and Hunter, but I want to mention again Queen Latifah because I liked her so much in Set It Off. Now, this is a woman who doesn't fit the conventional mold of movie casting.
Of course.
And she's going to have characters written for her and movies built around her or movies that can use her. I hope that Hollywood doesn't waste this resource. She is so much fun.
She's high energy. Okay, next movie. And our next film is, well, it's almost the same kind of story. It's Unmade Beds, the unusual and vivid documentary of adult singles in New York City, telling of their mostly unsuccessful attempts, typically involving singles ads, at looking for companionship, if not love.
Seriously, he was like 225 pounds. Yeah, like 45 years old, totally bald. He looked exactly like Humpty Dumpty.
4 people tell their stories, punctuated by shots from one apartment window across the street to another. And there is as much desperation in these brief, anonymous shots as in the interviews. Director Nicholas Barker assisted his cast in reciting their most colorful anecdotes and opinions. Now that's forbidden in the news business. We call that staging, but it's not lying. Take the case of Brenda, who complains that the men she meets just want to show her their sexual organs. But in an earlier soundbite, she makes it plain that all she really wants from men is for them to show her the money.
And really all it is I just want a man to give me money, help me with the things I need, and go away. In return, you know, we'll have sex a couple times a month, like maybe 4.
The most intriguing guy we meet, I think, is Michael, a 40-year-old bachelor who defines himself by his height, only 5'4", and he is starting to panic.
So I always say something like this. Here's what we do. Get together in a public place for a cup of coffee. If you take one look at me and find you want to projectile vomit, just come over and say, listen, I don't think this is going to work out. Good night. And I'll say, no problem, good night. We both go home intact.
Now, I think a sense of panic is detectable in each of these characters, and they would all do well to recognize it and delete it. Nevertheless, I enjoyed meeting them, and on that basis, and that Director Barker has actually documented something. Social despair in the 90s, I give thumbs up to Unmade Beds.
I liked a lot of the movie. I'm giving it a marginal thumbs down because I think he didn't know where to go with it. It just kind of goes around the 4 characters, shows some windows, goes around the 4 characters, shows some windows. By the end of the movie, it has outstayed its welcome. But what I found interesting, because I heard Barker speak after it was shown at a film festival, is that the whole movie was scripted. He interviewed them. He started with 400 people, got 4, interviewed them, wrote their scripts. There were 10 takes of some scenes. What he's doing here is creating a movie in the form of a documentary that the director is completely controlling.
But Roger, I think he could have used probably, I'm guessing, another 100, and we would have gotten the same kind of film. I mean, will you at least acknowledge that he is documenting something?
He's documenting, yes, he definitely is. But I don't know, these characters, Brenda is a real character. I liked her persona. Yeah. And there's another guy, Mikey, the would-be screenwriter, who's got it all worked out, including the free toothbrushes for his conquests. And looks like he doesn't go through very many toothbrushes in a year. This is interesting stuff.
If it's interesting stuff, I wonder why your thumb isn't up. Coming up later in the show, James Woods heads an unusual posse in John Carpenter's Vampires.
She's thirsty. Think she smells your blood, Padre?
And coming up next, Edward Norton and Edward Furlong star in the controversial American History X.
See this? That means not welcome.
I followed directions. I wrote in a paper.
Mein Kampf? I should expel you.
Go ahead.
Edward Furlong plays a high school student and junior skinhead who gets in trouble for praising Adolf Hitler in that early scene from American History X, which tells the story of how that kid follows his older brother, played by Edward Norton, into a skinhead gang in the Venice Beach area of Los Angeles. The present is shown in color in the film. The flashbacks are in black and white, but this isn't Pleasantville. You can see that in this scene where a playground war leads to some black kids trying to steal Norton's car. He kills 2 of them and is arrested.
Put your hands behind your head!
The older brother goes to prison where at first he links up with the white power faction, but his views begin to change after they punish him with a brutal rape. He gets a visit from his former high school teacher, played by Avery Brooks.
You have to ask the right question.
Like what?
Has anything you've done made your life better?
Out of prison, the older brother wants to close the book on the skinhead chapter of his life, but his kid brother is still very much a gang member, and the local cops and high school authorities still see him as influential in the skinhead scene.
I mean, do you know what you're asking me to do? Do you really know?
Yes, I'm asking you to do whatever's in your power to do.
American History X is a powerful and ambitious movie that contains strong performances and compelling individual scenes, but it somehow never achieves takeoff speed. Too many scenes have to function as band-aids for the plot. It's a good movie, always interesting, often provocative, and I give it credit for an intelligent and uncompromising approach to the problem of race hate in America. I'm recommending it, but it has the potential to be great, and I don't think it quite achieves it.
Well, I think it does, and I think the key scene in how he became a skinhead is that dinner table scene where the father rails against affirmative action. So we see it that hate, as the phrase goes, you have to be carefully taught.
Yeah, but you know, that's the very scene that I'm objecting to, because that appears to be the first time the father has ever mentioned that to the son. The son doesn't know his father thinks like that until the father brings it up. And this comes apparently only days or weeks before the father's death. It's not as if he has been raised for 17 years like that, so the scene reads like it was written because they felt they needed some quick explanation.
Well, I think we also can see the, just the camaraderie of, you know, the beach scene and belonging, and this is a kid who's lost. He doesn't have two parents in his house, you know, wearing a badge, even if it is a swastika, whatever. A sense of belonging. I mean, I think there's another terrific performance, of course, by Edward Norton in the film. I mean,
he's very good. If there's one imbalance in the film, is that Edward Norton is so effective in the rhetoric that he uses to support the white supremacist point of view.
Right.
And the other points of view in the movie are all kind of ineffectual or soft or nerdy or never really made very well. I mean, actually, when you look at this movie, it's the racist stuff that comes across most strongly.
Except by the end of the film, I think it is very, very clear. I mean, it's been building to a very logical conclusion, so that I think the film is actually a very powerful document, and there's real tension in this picture.
There are individual scenes that are first rate. I just don't think it was all quite pulled together.
I do.
Coming up next, the Vatican sends James Woods in search of the undead in John Carpenter's Vampires.
All right, we think we got a nest inside this place. Figure on at least 6 goons, maybe more, and chances are we'll find a master in here somewhere.
James Woods leads a team of vampire slayers in the exciting new picture from the director of the horror classic Halloween, who has so many admirers of that film and its success that he now gets his name in the title of the pictures he makes. So this one is technically called John Carpenter's Vampires, and it's so exciting it should only enhance his reputation as a horror director. Of course, it helps to have James Woods on your team when you want to make a high-energy movie, as the vampire hunter faces off against a vampire master, the evil Valak, who controls a nest of bloodsuckers.
For 600 years, I fed on your kind at will.
The story is actually a good one. Both Valak and the James Wood character are trying to get their hands on a wooden cross used in an uncompleted ceremony that could give vampires the ability to remain powerful even in the sunlight of daytime.
See the spiral pattern? Yeah. If you time sequence all the encounters, you get a logarithmic pattern, ever widening. It's a search pattern, Padre. They're looking for something.
You know what it is?
I heard stories when I was young. Something about a black cross.
The other key reason this picture works so well is that there isn't a single teenager in the cast. It's not juvenile in any way. All of the vampires and their hunters are portrayed by adult actors who play the situation seriously. So, no haunted high schools, no giggling, no drinking beer in the cars, no skinny dipping in the local lake. All this helps make John Carpenter's Vampires a rousing entertainment. It is properly rated R for rough language and scenes of intense, bloody violence and dismemberment. But I enjoyed it within that context and give it thumbs up.
I'm not giving it a thumbs up, although I share your delight that it's not another teeny bopper movie.
Right.
I mean, getting so tired, really, of teenage vampires. But on the other hand, this intriguing idea, which is that the church has given up on holy water and crucifixes and priests and prayer and just hires mercenaries now to winch these guys out into the sunlight and machine gun them and watch them go up in flames. That could have, I think, been dealt with a little bit more instead of just being the window dressing in a movie that is essentially just a shooting gallery in which you get, one scene after another of vampires and their hunters being hacked to pieces, shot, and dismembered and so forth.
In interesting ways. For example, we haven't seen self-immolation lately. I don't think this year, have we? When they get out in the daylight.
Is this a job for adults? Two of us deciding, how long has it been since we've seen self-immolation in the movies? They all look like they have Roman candles in their pockets.
Somebody did a little research, I guess, and they found some new gimmicks, and it works. Plus, you've got James Woods spouting off. He jacks up this picture so that it never lags.
I'm not giving a thumbs up. I'll concede that it could be considered in some circles as a guilty pleasure.
Oh, he's getting close to agreeing with me. That means in 2 years you'll come around to my opinion.
We will see in 2 years. Okay, our next movie is The Celebration, a harrowing Danish film about the total meltdown of a completely dysfunctional family. Director Thomas Vinterberg won the jury prize at Cannes for this film, which plays like a drama but lays it on so thick that sometimes we suspect we're watching a very, very, very dark black comedy. The action begins as family members gather at their father's country inn for his 60th birthday celebration. Here's the youngest son, alcoholic like many if not most of his relatives, engaging in what seems like the familiar ritual of blaming his wife for everything.
Jeg ved ikke, hvad der kære, hvad der ikke kan, men hvad der være? Jeg kan ikke til fest med de her sko. Og fuldstændig sindssyg, mand.
Hvad med, at du pakker dine egne ting, hva'?
The oldest son stands to make the first toast, and the fireworks start.
Men allerførst vil jeg gerne holde en lille tale. Jeg har skrevet 2 taler. En er grøn og en er gul, og du kan selv vælge, hvad for en det skal være.
The elder sister's black boyfriend arrives and is insulted by her younger brother, who is now even more drunk.
Listen here, we don't need any music, you know. No trumpet. No trumpet, you have to go home. I give you 500. It is also for the taxi, you know. What? You go home now, no music.
Listen, I'm not here to play. I'm invited.
Yeah. Vinterberg tells his story with a raw documentary immediacy, shooting on location using a handheld video camera and natural sound, all reflecting a dogma manifesto which he signed with fellow Danish director Lars von Trier, and which essentially seems to boil down to, let's make movies just like John Cassavetes did. The story is harrowing for its characters, but oddly entertaining for the audience. The Celebration is not really seriously disturbed by its painful subjects, but uses them as landmarks in a grotesque comedy about the family reunion from hell.
I wasn't laughing that much. I was fascinated by this imperious father who has had this generational impact, and you almost wonder who his father was. I think that this is learned behavior through the generations, and that the possession of this most unusual domicile, which is like a big inn as well as a home to all these people, and who controls it is very important within the family, and who will control it in the next generation. And that they're playing for that game too. This is a character and location like I haven't seen before. I recommend taking a look at it.
It goes around and around and around with that kind of social compulsion about the guests at the table just sit there and listen to this stuff, and then the next course is served as if nothing was said.
This is one of the coldest environments. No one could survive this, it would seem.
It's a fascinating film.
Yeah. Okay, coming up next, our video pick of the week, a rare film about women in the workplace. My video pick of the week is Clock Watchers, in which we follow an excellent cast of actors playing temporary workers who get in each other's ways emotionally and physically. Toni Collette, Parker Posey, and Lisa Kudrow co-star.
Credit.
Could you hand me a pen, please?
Look, you know what? I'm all out. Mine keep disappearing. I can't even find my Jack Shelburne.
Here, you can take mine. It's not very sharp, but you can have it.
No, that's all right, Irish. You need it. Just take a look at the desk in front of you, please, Paula.
I am not about to go picking through somebody else's desk.
No one is sitting there.
Well, somebody might see me.
And when denied respect, they grab at whatever minutia will make them feel superior.
I think we should go on strike. Just not show up one day.
Can you imagine? They'd be totally lost. They'd be completely scrambled.
Especially between 9 and 10. My God, the phones.
What's going on in Clock Watchers is that we are observing, in business management psychology terms, workers being supervised in Theory X style, which assumes that workers are basically lazy and must be watched closely. The more enlightened approach is called Theory Y, and that presumes that workers want to make a contribution and welcome a chance to work hard and be creative. Maybe the same cast should return in a Theory Y version of Clock Watchers. For now, I recommend the highly original Clock Watchers, just out in video stores, my video pick of the week.
Now let's take another look at the movies we reviewed this week. 2 delighted thumbs up for Living Out Loud with its wonderful rapport between Danny DeVito and Holly Hunter and its surprising supporting performance by Queen Latifah. A split decision on Unmade Beds, the story of lonely singles in New York. I thought the story got stalled, but Gene felt director Nicholas Barker accurately captured social despair in the 90s. 2 thumbs up for American History X, with strong performances by Edward Norton and Edward Furlong as skinhead brothers. We split on John Carpenter's Vampires. I thought it was basically just a gore fest, but Gene liked its energy, and he especially liked James Woods' performance.
Oh, yeah.
And finally, 2 thumbs up for The Celebration, the very, very, very dark black comedy from Denmark about a family reunion from hell. Remember, you can hear our reviews on the web at Siskel-Ebert.com, and we're working on that Macintosh Internet Explorer problem. Next week, we'll be back with reviews of more new movies, including The Siege, a political thriller starring Denzel Washington and Bruce Willis, and also The Waterboy, a slapstick football comedy starring Adam Sandler. That's next week, and until then, the balcony is closed.
From Jennifer Convertibles and Jennifer Leather, it's no interest, no payments, no down payment for 1 year at Jennifer Convertibles and Jennifer Leather.
Now there's a new Monistat that cures a yeast infection with a soothing cream. Introducing Monistat 3 Cream from the #1 doctor-recommended brand.
Introducing Suave antibacterial hand soap. Now you can kill germs and moisturize as you wash your hands of high prices. Suave. Don't you look smart?
Nothing tastes like popcorn cooked in a pot on the stove. Except, new home-style microwave popcorn from Pop Secret.